My name is Emily Parker. I'm 29 years old, and honestly, I never thought that a single whispered phrase, "You sure about this?" could explode my entire world. But here I am, sitting at the brink of what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life, my wedding day. I can feel my palms sweating as I speak these words into the mic, inviting you in, because if there's anything I've realized after months of betrayal, emotional gymnastics, and public embarrassment, it's that you, watching now, deserve to hear what really happened. So if this story grips you even just a little, go ahead, hit that like button, maybe subscribe, because trust me, you're not going to want to stop listening. I remember waking up that morning thinking, today is it. Today I become Mrs. Parker. But there was something undeniably off in the air, not the pheromones of romance, but the static of something twisted, of secrets that had been simmering just beneath the surface. I brushed my teeth, stared at my reflection, that girl with wide eyes and a forced, brittle smile, and I thought, okay, let's do this. In the mirror, my white gown was draped on its hanger beside me like a ghost, and the veil lay folded, fragile, waiting to transform me into a bride, my dream image, my fairy tale finish. But while I put on the soft blush, curled my hair into elegant waves, and let the makeup artist dust me with what felt like both hope and treachery, I felt a tension, as if invisible wires were pulling my heartstrings taut, just waiting to snap. At that moment, the hairstylist said, "You look beautiful." And I smiled through a slight twitch, thinking, thank you, but who exactly am I looking beautiful for today? I should have seen the signs. I should have felt them. But love, as it often does, is blind. My fiancé, Jake, always had that magnetic charm, warm laugh, confident stride, that gentle whisper in my ear. He'd say things like, "You complete me," or "I'm nothing without you," and I'd melt into his arms. Meanwhile, my sister Chloe, there was something in the way she looked at him, a certain kind of softness, a look that mother would have called too familiar. I muted that alarm, just sisterly closeness, even though deep inside, something niggled. The ceremony began, guests murmuring, the church doors opening, petals drifting down the aisle, and I walked on stage, heart pounding like a war drum. I placed a hand gently on the hymn book because otherwise, I suspected I'd collapse. And then he was there. Jake stood beside me, tall and handsome in his tux, smiling at me like I'd always been his universe. At that moment, I clung to that smile, believing in it as fiercely as someone clings to a life raft in a storm. Enter Father Marcus, the priest with the kind eyes, the gentle voice, except, somewhere behind those kind eyes, there was something else. Culpability. I didn't realize it then. I just saw a man ordained to bless our union. I didn't imagine he was orchestrating a kind of emotional sabotage. The organ began, the choir softened. Everything was in place. The suits were immaculate, the guests were seated, my father stood to give me away, and I tried to breathe. And then, just before we were to exchange vows, Father Marcus leaned in close, just close enough that I could feel his breath on my ear, and in that moment, I tensed. He whispered, so quietly that I almost imagined it, "You sure about this?" And the world stopped. My heart seized. I thought, what? Silence rippled. I could feel every breath in the room, the eyes on me, on us. He repeated it. Slight chuckle of nerves in his throat, "Are you sure?" Like some twisted reassurance, or question of consent. But that tone, that question carried weight. It implied doubt, betrayal, indifference. Did he know something I didn't? Was this some sick warning? My pulse roared, my mind faltered. I blinked, confused and terrified. Meanwhile, Jake turned to me, his eyes steady, unwavering, as if oblivious to the earthquake under my gown. Everyone was waiting. I swallowed. I nodded, mechanical. "Yes," I said, my voice brittle. And at that moment, I realized this wasn't just a whisper, It was the moment that would unravel everything. So yes, if you've ever had that creeping suspicion that something is horribly wrong when everything seems perfect, if you've ever felt that silence before the storm, stick with me, hit like, subscribe, because I promise you, I haven't even gotten to the worst part yet. I remember the following moments like a surreal blur, my knees like jelly, the guests' faces poised in a mixture of expectation and warmth, the stained glass catching the light casting rainbow fragments across the aisle. Everything looked so beautiful, so holy, so inevitable. I said I do, he said I do, and for a fleeting second, I believed. Then the priest continued, carrying on the ritual, and the congregation, oh, the congregation looked content. Not once did anyone gasp, or shift uncomfortably. Meanwhile, inside me, I was unraveling. We exchanged rings, his hand cold, mine shaking, and then, the priest pronounced, "You are man and wife," and everyone cheered. I forced a tear that tasted of smoke and heartbreak, not love. I don't even remember how we exited. I just remember petals raining, camera flashes, the soft hum of applause, and my heart pounding its frantic song. We walked out, confetti drifting in the spring morning air, like a shower of frozen flowers. Yet underneath the veil of celebration, I felt brought. By the time we got to the reception hall, grand chandeliers, tables blooming with florals and candlelight, a 4-tier cake that looked like something borrowed from a fairy tale, my hand was clenched so tight around my bouquet that my knuckles were white. I smiled at guests. "Thank you all for coming," I said. I must have sounded perky, charming even. But inside, I was panicking. Jake delivered a speech, to my beautiful wife, and here's where it stings, because it should have been perfect. But halfway through, he glanced at my sister Chloe, who by this point was uncomfortably close at the head table, and I swear I felt my world tilt. My voice caught in my throat, and I wondered, why wasn't Father Marcus up here now, offering me some sign, some salvation? Then came the toast. My best friend raised her glass and said, "To the newlyweds." And the hall filled with cups clinking. And I forced myself to drink, to breathe. But I was watching Jake watching Chloe. I was watching Father Marcus slip into the corner of the room, a sly smile on his face, a whisper to someone I couldn't quite see. I froze. Later, when the dance began, the band softly playing and couples swaying, Jake pulled me close. His breath was warm. I felt torn, a thirst for love, and a nausea of suspicion. And then he whispered, not sweet words, but that half smile that always made me feel safe, but now felt like bait. That night, I woke alone in the bridal suite. The bed was cold, sheets untouched. Chloe wasn't in the room, I don't think she was even there, I don't know where Jake went. I wrapped myself in the dress, looked at the gown lying on the chair, like a shell of what I had believed. And I thought, what have I done? The only sound was my heart whispering betrayal in the dark. I don't know what you're thinking as you're listening, but if you've ever endured the quiet dread that maybe, just maybe, you were the only one who didn't see the signs, like being the punchline in a joke you're the last to understand, then stay with me. I haven't told you half of it yet. I spent that night trembling in the dark, replaying the day like a broken record. The floral scent of the hall drifted into my dreams. I tried to sleep, pretending the phone ringing was just someone extolling how lovely I looked. Instead, it was Father Marcus. He called me at 2 in the morning. I answered, voice hoarse, "Father? Is everything okay?" He said, in that soft baritone, "Emily." I just wanted to, my heart seized. Wait. Did he? Was he offering comfort, or confirmation? He continued, and paused, and I heard breathing. And then, look, I didn't mean the things I said earlier to scare you. Another pause. And then, Emily, be careful with him. Be very careful with Jake. Those words crashed into me, not as words of regret, but as evidence. He knew. He had known. And he hadn't stopped it. He'd stood there, officiating our marriage, even knowing my fiancé had betrayed me, with my sister. I didn't sleep again. I stared at the ceiling, the shadows dancing. I thought about phone records, texts, wedding videos, Father Marcus's whisper. And then in the panic, rage, I grabbed my laptop, pulled up photos from the wedding photographer. And there, in one frame, was Father Marcus leaning toward Chloe during the ceremony. Whispering. Her lips parted like she was about to say something, or had just heard something. Then a separate shot from reception, Jake and Chloe, close. Too close. The body language, unmistakable. My heart cracked in two. The betrayal was not just emotional, it was choreographed, shared by multiple conspirators. My sister. My fiancé. My priest. I felt like I didn't belong in the image that was supposed to represent love. I belonged in a horror story. Next morning, I confronted Chloe. I found her in our parents' house, post-wedding brunch. She sipped mimosas like nothing was wrong. I stood in that sunlit room, with wedding confetti still under our feet, and I asked her, "What did you do?" The look on her face was a smooth mask, shock, hurt, denial. But I pressed. And she stammered, "I don't know what you're talking about." And suddenly, I saw the edges of her lie. I grabbed the photos on my phone, showed her, "Who is this standing next to you in the ceremony? Who is this whispering to you?" I saw her facade crack. She whispered, "Emily, please don't do this." I said, "I know everything." And she broke, quietly. "He kissed me. He said he'd leave you for me. And the priest, he told me it would be okay." And there it was. Confirmation, bleeding like an open wound. And a revelation, my sister had been complicit, and the priest had sealed the deal. I fled that room out into the garden, past the brunch tables, past the stunned guests. I remember the grass prickling my stockinged feet, the sun warm, mocking. And I thought, this isn't over. I want you to picture me now, standing outside the bridal suite window, rain beginning to drizzle, like the world was crying with me. My wedding dress clung to me, heavy, wet, not the perfect ending I'd imagined. But what would happen next was my revenge, my justice, my rising from the ashes. And you won't believe how it ends. I marched back inside, drenched, to the stunned faces of our family and friends. I didn't speak, I just unbuttoned my dress at the bodice, letting it fall to the floor, revealing the dress beneath, the one I'd packed secretly, a black slip with the words painted in red lipstick across my chest, "I do. But I deserve better." The room froze. Jake, pale. Chloe, guilt-ridden. Father Marcus, he looked like he'd swallowed a sermon and choked on the truth. I stood there, voice steady, but my heart thundered, "You all witnessed this," and I gestured to my dress, every lie. Every betrayal. The priest who knew, and still, pronounced us husband and wife. The fiancé who thought I wouldn't find out. The sister who thought she could replace me. But today, I stand here, and these are my vows. I vow never to be silent. I vow to choose myself over anyone who tried to bury me alive. I vow to walk out, not as someone who was betrayed, but as someone reborn. At that moment, the whisper that started it all echoed in my mind, "You sure about this?" And I realized, yes, I am sure. I am sure that I refuse to be a martyr in someone else's theater of shame. The guests scattered. Some wept. Some whispered. Jake lunged, I saw it coming, but I sidestepped, walked past him. Chloe tried to grab my arm, but I pulled free. Father Marcus looked on, silent. And I walked out, into the rain, into freedom. Weeks later, Father Marcus was stripped of his duties, after the diocese investigated. The wedding was declared invalid. Jane, my hairstylist friend, said, "You turned your trauma into triumph. And maybe that's my redemption." So here we are, this is the real ending you didn't see coming. I refused to be the bride in a coffin of lies. I shredded the script they wrote for me and wrote my own. And you who followed this, I want you to know, if life thrusts betrayal in your face, shame the world with your healing. If you're breathing, you're alive, and the story doesn't end here. If you're ready for more truth and storytelling, if my voice matters to you, then do me one last favor, like, subscribe, hit that bell, because I want to tell you the stories nobody else dares to. Our next chapter starts now.